It's basically the talk of the town right now. Everyone's talking about it, so I guess I'd, you know, put in my own 2 cents about Squid Game. But yeah, Squid Game. General consensus is watch it. If you haven't seen it, um, I would definitely recommend going into it blind. Uh, I think that's like definitely the best way to consume it because I went to it completely blind. Like I had basically no idea what the premise was, and I think for everyone going into Squid Game, it's better that way. But if you just want to hang out and just listen to me talk about Squid Game, non spoilers, and then some spoilers later on, then yeah, stay and listen, I guess. Do whatever you want. So a little bit about the background about Squid Game in researching, this property. It's directed by Hwang Dong-hyuk, who isn't really known for anything right now. Squid Game is really the project where he's really blown up, not just nationally in Korea but internationally, because everyone is talking about Squid Game right now. Everyone around the world, and for good reason. He actually scripted Squid Game back in 2008, but struggled to find like funding for his project. Um, Ironically, because of his financial situation and consistent rejection from buyers or people who had the money to fund and do his project, basically, just because people were just not on board with his narrative, right? It's really weird and zany and almost like surreal. Like it's very strange at parts. Um, in a way, you can say that Huang is kind of like a man of a future, but has kind of lived to see his future realized in a way. Um, just because of not to say that they weren't relevant before, but nowadays people are so much more conscious about um, how desperate people are these days due to their financial situation, and a little bit more and how more acceptable this medium is, like short form TV shows. Basically, it's 9 episodes. They vary from half an hour to like a little more than an hour, basically. um I'd say that's probably thanks to definitely Parasite had influence in making this project real, and also shows like Kingdom, where they're they are still K dramas, but they tell more you know they're not like romance or crime or espionage. They're not like that, really schlocky kind of like film stuff. It's like, no, there's like some interesting filmography going on here, right? Um, but yeah, I mean, that's pretty much enough of the background. Because the rest of the show basically tells you what it going through the background is a little bit redundant, because the things that in researching this show, the things that came up are things that came up in the story, basically. Set design, the reason why certain backgrounds of characters are implemented. It all makes sense in the narrative. So want to just get into the actual show. Um, to cover really quickly some technical things, it's shot super well. There's such a great mix of like very steady cam shots that push in, push out, dolly, and have a lot of nice smooth movements. There's a mix between that and then static shots, which are really used to convey the calm before the storm. They're used a lot during transitional scenes where there's like tension, right? Or if there's like downtime, there's a lot of static shots where literally the camera is staying still and almost resting before it like transitions to more like chaotic shit, right? Um, and like the next kinds of shots that they implement are like very not super shaky, but like handheld footage where like when like people start like losing it, right? The camera starts to also kind of lose its balance. So it's really well shot in a way that like reflects the tone of the sequence or the mental state of the characters, right? Um it's beautiful. It's beautiful, really. What adds to that beauty is like how like colorful this show is. It's like there's like such a stark contrast between the the children's like play sets. Basically, the premise of the show is a lot of people are recruited into this game show, right? To win an enormous sum of money. Basically, most of these people are in very dire financial situations, and so they're kind of like forced not against their will, but they find themselves in a corner where they have to make a choice to participate in these games. And the games are themed very specifically where they're old Korean games of like the 50s to 70s and 80s. It's and so having that childish motif around like the entire like game series, like the series of games that they play, the color palette is like so like it really reflects the innocence of, like you got like very like, baby blues, you got your like pinks, yellows, it's all like, playhouse colors. um and having that and then contrasting it with the inane violence that ensues from these games, to like kind of like go into it a little bit. That's why I say watch it without, watching this video, right? You should be watching this video after you've seen Squid Game. But having that contrast between like the innocence that the sets convey next to the like very brutal and like realistic violence. I don't know if it's realistic. It's brutal, right? It's a very gory show. But having the gore kind of like coincide with each other is like such a very stark and provocative like color palette, because you got like when like the play sets become stained with like dark scarlet that is like very clearly blood. It really, like kind of like messes with you psychologically, and it's very powerful in that sense. um what also helps to kind of like create that tension that the color palette also kind of lends itself into is the music. Oh my fucking god, the music is really phenomenal. I don't know how to like describe it, but it's like choir, like goth or something. I don't know, but like it's super eerie and whimsical. That's like a really big like feeling that I get from the music, is that it's like old fairy tales where like the content is dark, but it's kind of like put in through the perspective or the lens of like humor, right? So it's eerie, atmospheric music that really sets you like on edge, but it also has like an element of like humor in it. I can't really explain it that well unless you've like listened to it. Um, unless you like listen to it for yourself. But it does like a really great job of like setting the atmosphere of the entire show. Um, that's not to say that that's the only thing that's in the music. There's also like great like emotional scenes. There's also some like really there's some there's a lot of like not jokes. It's not like a very jokey show, but the show never lets itself kind of be weighed down too much by like kind of like the somberness of like the situation, which is like, so many people dying. There are like some like great comedy scenes in this show, which like is so, it's like a masterclass in like play of like edging the line between comedy and horror. Comedy and horror are very similar genre structurally, because you have your tension, you have your mystery, right? And then you have your punchline or a jump scare, right? Or a scare, right? Comedy horror, even though they elicit so many different emotions, are structured very similarly. So there's a really great balance that this show achieves, where sometimes like in super tense moments, the release that you get is not like one of horror, but it actually is like, oh my god, that's hilarious, and that's how it relieves the tension of the scene. It's really brilliant writing, like genuinely amazing. um Not only that, in terms of like how it's structured, but like the story choices that this show takes. There's so many like bold and like intelligent choices that Squid Game takes. If you've seen the second episode, I'm gonna tell you straight up that the second episode is my favorite. Like, I'm not gonna get into it right now. But the writers make a decision that, that it's something that like when like once you start seeing the situation, right? You start thinking like, oh, like they could do this, right, to make it really interesting, but there's no way they can do that. Otherwise, like, how would the show keep existing? But then the show does that, and then it manages to very logically push you, or push these characters, like, and make choices that sets them back in. I don't know if that might be a little bit too much. Again, you should not be watching this unless you've already seen Squid Game, because I might leak something, and I'm trying my best not to. But yeah. Anyways, yeah. I mean, like, even though it really makes like the tough writing decisions when there's like a very clear choice. This one's very easy to continue the show. This one is super hard, right? And it'd be like a real like, it's very bold to like go in this direction, and it goes in those directions, and then you're like holy shit, like how can the show continue existing for like another 7 episodes? And you're like, oh, like this is why, like it helps to give motivation and what's the word, like independence to the characters, right? Because the situation is not forced upon our characters. Like, they choose to go into the Squid Game, and they choose to risk their lives for the money, and that really adds like a level of intrigue or depth, whatever you want to call it. They go into the game of their own free will, and that's a mark of any great tragedy. Like, if you go into like the old Greek tragedies, the whole point of the tragedy is that these people chose to go in these directions, even though they were like maybe told not to, or like there was a prophecy involved. Like, yeah, like I think Oedipus is a great example where the choices that he makes in order to escape fate only lead him towards fate. And that's kind of like the irony of the show. But the thing about Oedipus is that those are all his choices, regardless of his knowledge of the entire situation. Like, he makes those choices to, go into the city, kill this specific person, and then, take over and become king and marry this queen. Oh, turns out you killed your father and slept with your mother. But even though the prophecy like told you that this would happen, your actions in doing so, your free will actions have led you down this path. And yeah, so there's like a dramatic irony in that. There's not so much a dramatic irony in Squid Game, but my point is that these characters make their choices, and therefore it has more weight as opposed to the entire situation being forced upon them. In which case, it feels, like um, the the weight of the choice is taken away, and that makes it a lot less meaningful. Um, but yeah, I mean, uh, going forward into like the characters. Now that we're talking about the characters, oh my god, like the performances in the show are just like uh they're all right, like we're gonna go like and discuss an example. So Lee Chun-jae, who plays our main lead Gi-hun, like at the beginning of the show, he's kind of like a fuck up. He's irresponsible. He gambles and like is super irresponsible with money. So you kind of like start off the show being like, yeah, what the fuck is this guy's problem? Like stop making these dumb choices. And then you like, continue on with the show or continue on with like learning about his character, and Lee Chun-jae does such a great job of like making you feel for this character because he is in a tough scenario. He does make these tough decisions or irresponsible decisions that like, leads to trouble, but his heart is like pure, and he comes from like a really good place. He's just a nice guy that's like just trying to do his best even though he has these flaws, right? He's such a human and empathetic character, and Lee Chun-jae does such a great job of like emoting both exaggerated and really nuanced acting, like emotions. Like he's got like great like eye acting. Like his eyes are awesome. His facial expressions are awesome. Oh my god, he he made me cry in episode 6. Like it was like he was like doing some really powerful and really resonant acting, for me at least. I don't like, maybe like you won't cry or something. That's your response to it, and that's completely fine. But for me, like he was really resonant, and like I could not hold it in episode 6, and I was just like weeping in front of my parents. It was just like, my god, like this show is like really making me feel something. There's some other great characters. Park Hae-soo, who plays Sang-woo, is like a real he plays like a fairly conflicted character, who starts to kind of go mad. Oh Young-soo plays the old man, and he's just like a nice, like fuzzy, very nostalgic feeling kind of character. Probably because he's old, and when they start playing the games, he recognizes the games, and he's like, oh, we should do this, or we should do this strategy, just to make, because like I've played these games before, and this is how you win. He brings like a lot of wisdom and experience to the show, and he's like a phenomenal presence. Very, very fun. Another performance that I thought was just like completely like heartbreaking and like so empathetic was Jung Ho Yoon, who plays Sebuk. She's the North Korean deserter. You all meet these people in like episode 1, so this is hardly a spoiler. And she's basically kind of like the oyster of the show, where like she's very tight-lipped and very cold to everyone at the beginning, but like as the show goes on and she's like put in like super emotional situations, she opens up and like she has like a very like she has a lot of beautiful moments, I think, in the show. Another great actor that I wanted to mention was I don't know if I'm gonna get this right, but Anupam Tripathi, who is the Pakistan. He's Indian, but he plays a Pakistani migrant worker, named Ali Abdul in the game, and I was just like, why the fuck is a Pakistani person, in this show? And I was like looking him up, and I was looking up also the Pakistani presence in Korea, and there actually is like quite a lot of Pakistani migrants who come to Korea for work. And I was like, damn, this is like a representation of a sub cat like a group of people in Korea that I just never knew existed, and it really led to like a lot of like exploration on my part. I was just like, wow, like I had no idea that there were so many Pakistanis in Korea. I was really like fascinated by his presence in the show, and that led me to do more research, and I think that's a good thing. He's a great actor, very empathetic, very pure, very heartwarming. He's all about like being brothers and stuff. And definitely the five people that I mentioned, are the standouts. Now to like kind of get into like the nitty gritty, I can see I'm 22 minutes in, and I need to get through the other stuff quickly because this camera only goes for 30 minutes. So what I love about this show is that it's a very individualistic Parasite. If you've seen Parasite before, its subtext and criticism are very macro in its analysis in a way, and its portrayal of like characters. You have your poor family, you have your rich family. That can apply to anyone basically, right? Like any society, any structure. Like Bong Joon-ho does like a really great job of making sure that like while the criticism is very Korean specific, it can also be applied to a lot of different cultures, and that's why Parasite's such a genius film. But for Squid Game, what I found so interesting is that because we have so much time to spend with these characters, the characters are the heart of the show, and so it becomes a character study of how money motivates or manipulates these people, even though the cast is like super diverse from like a whole, from all walks of life. And what's interesting is, it's that one thing that brings them all together, and it's money. It's a very interesting kind of like anthropological study of how, or not anthropological, sorry, psychological study of how people will, what kinds of lengths will they go to? What will they sacrifice? How will they change in the face of, a literal sum of money that will indefinitely change their life, right? That's definitely the most interesting like subtextual thing that I like to take out of it. I'm gonna go into a little bit of spoilers here to discuss some criticisms I have of Squid Game. If you haven't seen it, please stop watching. Definitely watch it on your own, get your own opinion. If you want to know my opinion, definitely watch, come back to my video and like watch on, and see if you agree, if you disagree, comments and everything. The biggest, I'm talking a little bit fast because I can see the timer running out. There's so much to talk about with this story, but I just want to make it one video because I'm lazy. Anyway, the thing about Squid Game is that it starts with the mystery, and the mystery is like who's manipulating everything in the Squid Game. Like there are people it's a huge operation. So like who's in charge of this? Why are they doing it? Why do they theme it as children's games? why is that relevant? Um, Once you finish the story, that kind of so they do start answering those questions, right? Um, but in my opinion, it's not that satisfactory because when you have a mystery, the intrigue of the show initially is the tension and the atmosphere that it generates, the mystery generates, right? And that's, where this show excels in. However, when you have mystery shows or whatever, right? If you decide to divulge the mystery, you have to replace it with something that's even more interesting or just as interesting, logical and intriguing, to keep the viewers engaged. They're like, oh, this is what it's about. Okay, let's see this play out. Um, they give you some of the answers, but like it is a real jarring disconnect from the rest of the show. I'm gonna tell you like straight up, like past episode 6, they introduce what they call VIPs, and they're basically like international people who like watch and bet on these Squid games, basically, right? On these like survival games. And the VIPs are just like so cartoonish and so like goofy, and it completely like deflates the pace of the show, and like it's a very strange writing choice that Huang, put in. Like I don't know why he included all this stuff if not for the purpose of a sequel later on, which is what this show on kind of does, kind of to my kind of in my opinion to its discredit, because I feel like it's really held back creatively by the fact that it's a TV show and it needs to be like, hey, we can do season 2, right? Which will have more answers. So they don't really like satiate your appetite of solving the mystery. If they didn't, like solve the mystery and it was just like, complete fog of like what's going on, and it was more focused towards the characters and how they react to money, like if and when they do win, like what do they do now that they have this enormous sum of money that can solve all their problems. Like that would be an interesting end and twist to the show, but it doesn't really do that. It kind of forgoes that for this plot element of like kind of digging in to the lore, when in reality the really interesting thing that people praise the show for is like these characters and the allure of money, basically, right? You don't need to go into the mystery. It's kind of like people get it, like you see that money, awesome, we're gonna kill each other for it. Yeah. It was just a really strange writing choice that didn't really like fit in with the logic of the rest of the show. Not to say that the ending is completely shit. It's fine. But like in comparison to the rest of the show, it's just like, is this really how it ends? It kind of gives that feeling. But yeah, I mean, like all in all, like watch Squid Game. Like holy shit. If you enjoy Parasite, if you enjoy like dark comedies, if you enjoy like survival games, like Battle Royale, all that stuff, yeah, like Squid Game is your thing. Amazing show, amazing writing. It's so well paced, so well written, so well acted. Like everything is just so well crafted and put together into like a really like fine dish. Um, Not just like a dish that's like immaculately crafted, but like which like really like fills you up. It's really wonderful what they did with this show, and I can't like recommend it highly enough. It gets a 9 out of 10 from me. I had to take it down from a 10 because of the ending. And like if they do more in the future and they like wrap it up with interesting social critique, I think that would be great. Anyways, I have about 10 seconds, so I'm about to cut the video. So thanks for watching.